Welcome to Real Estate on the Rocks, where you get top shelf real estate conversations served straight up, never watered down. Here's your host, Dave Snowberger.
Welcome back to Real Estate on the Rocks. Joined in the studio today, we've got Marshall Tucker in rare form this morning.
Why is that?
Well, you tell us here in a minute. We're going to let everybody know. But we also have the man behind the glass, the new guy, James Mendez.
What's going on?
Not much, fellas. Let's get this rolling. We'll bring up Marshall's state of mind, state of whatever this is, state of health.
I had a closing yesterday, so fairly good.
Is that what it is? I think you went out and celebrated too much.
Uh-oh.
As you can tell, today's podcast, well, I guess we can't say that it's released a little bit late. However, it is.
That's
So
okay.
if you're hearing this one in the
Today,
future, just remember that Marshall had a closing, went out and celebrated.
A little bit.
A little bit.
With
Too
Dave,
much.
With Dave.
With me.
And a good mentor. Two good mentors.
Right. All right, let's get to it. Today we were talking, the conversation started over the past few days. We're just kind of the failing forward, right? And so most people, when they hear the word failure, they want to stay far away from failure. And I get it. However, I've started to realize, and I think industries have started to realize that failing forward means what, James?
You're actually doing something to learn from. You're only learning from your failures. You're not learning anything from your successes. So if you actively move forward, doing something, you're going to hit your misses, and you just take that growth and that information,
Right,
and those experiences, and you just keep moving forward, and you'll slowly start refining it and bettering yourself, and
right.
in the
You
process.
just get to dial it in.
Yep.
I think is really one of the best explanations. Marshall, can you think of anything actionable? Maybe as an agent and starting, how long have you been an agent now? 3 years, 4 years?
About 4.5
years. All right. Well, you've been with me for 3.5 of those 4 years of those. So when you started out, you certainly had some failures. We had some failures as a team, as a new team to the market, as a new team into Keller Williams at that time. Tell me something that you can think of that a new agent might be struggling with and say, man, I'm just failing at this.
I think I've been there a couple of different times, and I can kind of gauge that by my pocketbook. So there was a couple of times where things just weren't popping for me. I couldn't really figure out why no one was really pulling the trigger. The bank account had gone down to zero. Paying the rent on the credit card there, and it's like, what am I going to do next month? This has got to be rock bottom. Is this rock bottom? I'm pretty sure it's rock bottom. And so from there, and just focused and started doing everything I was supposed to do with the scripts, and people started converting, and I started getting paychecks in. I was able to pay off the debt, and then I'm back on top.
All right.
And then I guess, not learning from that mistake, kind of took the foot off the gas pedal, let's say. Celebrated a little bit, and found myself kind of back in the same situation about 6 months later. And it's like, I never want to feel like this again.
Right.
It never can get this low again. The credit cards are not used to pay the mortgage.
Right.
So after that, I corrected whatever I was doing wrong, started focusing more. It's all about focus, I guess. And now I'm doing great. So.
Right. But there's still the potential, though, of the ebbs and flows of this business,
right,
to do it again, to history repeats itself, to do that, to fall into that trap again. So, I guess the failing forward part of this for you would be a small win that you started to be able to really figure out that
manage my money a little bit better, and be focused where it needs to be at work.
Right. Okay. James, what about you?
Majority of my first year was a lot of failures. I actually heard this guy, Jay Massey, said it. He does podcasts and books and some other stuff at Wholesaler. And he says, fail fast, fail forward, and fail often. And so keeping that mindset, I was just trying to get in there and do everything. Like I'd volunteer for phone duty, for anything, just to try and get a little taste of it. Because for me, the process is where I learn. And so actually being able to walk through something and do the process is where it helps. And then just the experience with it, like I was avoiding phone calls and a lot of phone calls for a long time. And then I just slowly kept inching it forward and kept making more and more. And then when I really dove into it, started definitely turning things around a bit.
Yeah. I guess for me, I mean, just going back to the beginning and the first year, I just really had thought that my biggest failure was that everybody was going to come and buy real estate from me because I was so well connected in Austin. I was at an age group
that's not your failure. That's a fact.
right. But it was a failure to realize, right. And so it was a failure to let my ego, in a sense, get in the way that, just because I'm, Dave and I beat on my chest and everybody, I've got my real estate license now, let's watch me go and I'm going to be the best agent in the world. And here I go. And man, that failed out quick. Remember, I always talk about that I made less than $5,000 my first year. And so when I finally realized that, I was failing at this job, this career, is when I finally started turning it around a little bit, and I started dropping the ego a little bit and looking out and looking for at least small wins. I had run into Steve Full at that time. I know we had brought him up because that was your drinking buddy last night, but
wrap me out on the air.
But we, as soon as he came into the office space, I started just kind of mirroring and matching, for lack of better terms, everything that guy did, because I knew after 20 plus years he was successful. He drove a Mercedes and he had all this other stuff, and just kind of like, he just looked like he was a little bit successful as a realtor, and so that's what I started doing, was that. And so I finally failed forward enough to start getting some traction and getting some stuff, and of course my parents listing with me helped.
I can remember back to the first year, and I always called it the December plan, because I kind of started in January and I was working at the restaurant at the time, and I always just said, it's this December plan. I'll get busy later on. Right now I'm learning and I'm learning and I'm learning and I'm learning. Right. And then I never would, you get the most education on the job.
What's jacked up though is now that you just said that, I appreciate you saying that, because realtors seem to still be in that space, and we're in that space. Mm-hmm. We have to learn the Facebook ads, right? And so we used to do Facebook ads. They changed some things around. We stopped doing Facebook ads and advertising, and then we realized that, lost my train of thought.
That we've done more research than actually.
They weren't effective.
Than actually like implementation on the new version of.
Sorry, we were talking about learning. It was about learning, that we're always in that learn mode. So now we've been in the learn mode for a couple months now with the Facebook stuff, and we still haven't launched it. Like, we get in there, we start playing around with it, like great campaign, and then we just don't release it. And it's, maybe I need to go to this class again. And then you sent me something just early this morning, which I was surprised that you were up, that, you can do these 2 Facebook ad things for free. Like Facebook has a little program you can go to and enroll in, and it's free because they want to teach you how to do ads, because they want your money,
to spend.
Coming in, right.
When you spend it in there.
And
the coaching call, right.
Right. And so instead of spending money, I think we should do that. However, it's putting ourselves back in that learning phase. And I think it's important to always continue to learn. However, if you're learning and not executing, that's where the failure is.
Yeah. I mean, you can learn. I mean, that's one of the good things about the industry is there's millions and millions of courses and programs and trainings and things you can be a part of. 100% of that brings you 0 commissions.
Yeah. There's training at our fingertips. I mean, there's training through Google. There's training all over Facebook. I mean, there's training on Instagram. I mean, there's training.
Just quit everywhere. Training and jump into it and get started. Get busy.
It's execution. Well, I mean, we're going to take a hard turn here in a minute to execution. Really, execution and consistency of execution is where this lies. But the constant learning. You always have to be the student, right? However, the best students start executing.
Yeah. Well, because then you learn more too. I mean, as you're executing, you're going to learn, oh, wait, this didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. Because you're always testing and testing and testing. And you see there was a conversation the guy was talking about on Facebook. He was doing a little live video, and I was tuned into him. And he was saying, oh man, every time we launch these things, oh no, it was a podcast. I'm sorry. He was saying that we launched a couple of videos and trying to get all these, ads and everything going for a launch of a product. And he said that he'd do it and then they wouldn't work, or they'd get a fatigue ad fatigue. And so he had to scrap those or tweak this. And then he'd post a couple of them, a couple different ads, and then find out with specific pieces in it and then see which ones were succeeding. And then he'd scrap the other ones. And he started basically consolidating the wins of the different, like the copies different or the title, the video or pictures. And he just started refining those and bringing them in and scrapping the stuff that wasn't working. So he's always testing, but he wouldn't be able to do that if he wasn't actually doing it.
ABT, always be testing.
Yep. If I think back to my mindset during that first year, I think a big contributor of it was fear. You know, I didn't want to
You said beer?
Fear.
Oh, fear.
I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to mess something up. I didn't want to screw it up. And so I need to keep training and didn't actually launch myself out there to set myself up to fail.
But you know, that's if we're going to just sit in here and be honest, I mean, I'll be honest. The reason why I picked the broker at the time that I did on the opposite side of the city where I was living was that I could go in there for 2 years and learn this business and not have like my friends and family and everybody else think of me as inexperienced. I wanted to be, you know, just known. I didn't want to work for it the first 1 or 2 years, you know, and the whole fake it till you make it thing was I went out in a different market and started doing that. Now I ended up loving that market, you know, and spending, you know, the past however many years here now in this market and well, still on this side of Austin, but, you know, I can tell you that I was deathly afraid of what people thought of me. And right there, that's failure, you know, and little by little, if you know me now, I mean, I'm out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Dave doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, I do video. I do a series called Wilco Eats where I interview local restaurant owners, and I'm constantly on social media. And I would have never have done that in the past, you know. But it was always the failing forward. You hate your voice, you know. You hate the way you look, and like, oh my God, you know, I got a lot of gray in my beard or whatever else. I'm not going to post that, and just kind of continue to fail at it and get better, you know. And now I think our game in that world is pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people's perception is that people will be negative and kind of crush them in the beginning when they need more support. In reality, the vast majority of people are more encouraging, and even sometimes it feels phony. They're like, "Oh man, you'll kill it. You got this. You got this." And everyone's trying to pump you up because they care more about, well, one, the fact that they know you, or have experience with you, but they want to see the actual journey. And there's some of the top people in social media have been pumping this for quite a while. Most people want to see you through the entire journey. And that's where you'll get your deep, solid followers in community is people that have seen you from the very beginning and struggling to building up and growing into something, you know.
Right. I've got a great example of that right now, actually. Probably about 2 minutes ago, I lost my train of thought. And typically I would say, cut that out. And I even said, you can cut that out, you know, and then we circle back to it when it's time to release the episode. And you typically don't follow the direction very well from being the producer. And you leave the stuff in there and it always turns out a little bit better. It's more authentic, you know, and it's just like, I'm not trying to be something I'm not. Yeah. And the way I speak and the way I lack of articulation versus, you know, some things I'm very articulate on and I kind of choose and I speak in bullet points, you know, I mean, that conveys because people know me and that's how I talk. Yeah. You know, that's just how I communicate with people. Yeah. And so I get worried about that, you know, maybe a high C or a S personality that needs more information and I don't mesh very well. I mean, my girlfriend's a C and an S and, you know, and just, she constantly wants information from me and it drives me insane. Like she asks me way too many questions and I speak in bullet points that are very just kind of to the point and she doesn't get it. And so our communication's off a little bit of times, but however, it took me failing at a lot of arguments and things like that to notice that, okay, look, we're two different types in communication wise and started doing that. So you
have to kind of add a little more context to it to match up to hers. Right. And that's what I was saying with some of the ones who are like, oh, scrap this or cut that. I'm like, all right, well, let's check it out and post. And you're like, well, no, I know. And then listening to it back. Like, no, those were actually good points. And the way it flows and the information and how it's presented sounds really good. I mean, I scrapped some of the stuff where like the long pauses or that some of us do, or the, any kind of little fluff junk. Yeah. And then blend it together and it comes out really good.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's episodes we walk out of here, and after recording, I'm like, "Don't you dare air that!
You're fired if you air it.
Any of that crap." Like all that was a bunch of incoherent rambling, and then you go back and listen to it, and it's the most downloaded podcasts we have.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was like, don't release that one at all. I released it. And it came out good.
And it came out fantastic. Still one of the most downloaded episodes we have. Yeah.
Like, yep.
One day you're gonna mess up though. Really.
I know.
You're gonna leave one of the ones in there where I cuss a lot.
Yeah. No, but I mean, and that's, I mean, but it's the doing it and then like the process of going through it. I mean,
Right.
I would have never been able to do some of the stuff we've done with the recording, with the podcast, through launching it, through lead gen, through any of this stuff, if it hadn't been like people saying like pushing and pushing and pushing and finally getting out there and then start doing it.
I want to point out that we have failed numerous times at the podcast, lost episodes, trashed episodes, and we still continue on.
Well, we had this
move
going
forward.
before we even met you, James. You know, I mean, we had this going to when we were in another room and we used a different mic, and you know, we weren't really releasing things. They were just for us to kind of like work out all the kinks beforehand. But you know, we used a central mic that was a Yeti right in the table, and you could hear everything, and then you could hear people down the hallway talking about, you know, going out on a Friday night because we're sitting in here recording or whatever, and just kind of you can hear people coughing, you know, in the next office, and it's just kind of
Secret
like
deals.
Yeah, well, this
They'll
is
take
like,
this for that.
Yeah, we actually heard someone, funny story. We actually heard someone at one time talking about a diagnosis from a doctor.
Ooh.
Yeah, like we couldn't hear it right here. Yeah. However, we went back and listened to it, and just kind of like you could hear, well, this is what the doctor said, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how can I unhear that? I don't want to hear that, you know. And I feel bad. It's like, but you can't go say anything.
Yeah,
you can't go like, hey, I heard about this, you know. It's just like,
we were recording
what, are you creeping on me?
You kind of heard everything. Yeah.
Right, you came straight through our vents, right? And so,
sure, that'd be awesome.
Right, so now the vents are taped up.
Yeah,
and it's really hot.
That's why we're hot.
No, but I mean, it's good though. I mean, like if you never start, you're never going to get to where you're trying to go. So all those mini failures are they're wins, they're successes, all of them.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, and that's the thing too is you have to keep in. Let's talk about execution. You know, it's like, oh, I want to do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn how to do it, and then I'm going to have paralysis by analysis. I'm going to keep coming up with reasons why I shouldn't do it, or I'm going to overcomplicate it. You know, especially like video. Yeah. I'm going to overcomplicate it. I want to do this video, however, you know, so and so is doing it. You know, and I saw another realtor just stole my idea. You know, man, come on. You know, the biggest advice I can give with that was all I started doing was I turn it was an iPhone at the time, but some other phone, you know, a Droid or whatever, Android, turned it around and I started talking to it. And then I put it out there. And then next thing you know, it had good interaction. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
The stealing it thing is funny though, because I showed you the video, it was a couple weeks ago, where a guy from California is pumping out videos, and like he's got a whole crew and everything, right?
Right.
And so somebody else in his sphere, who's actually talking to this his media guy, and you know wants tips and everything. He did a similar show, almost similar name, in another part of California, a couple hours north of him. And he posted on. He's like, "Hey man, can you check it out? Can you guys let me know if I need to change anything?" It's almost a mirror copy. Just obviously swap out the names and stuff.
It's funny you say that because
literally did the same thing.
The person who you're talking about, I can just tell by your description, is the exact person that I R&D'd, ripped off and duplicated.
And you know what him and his staff are doing? They're like, "Oh, you did a great job," and they jumped in and said,
"Oh, dude, they're all about sharing.
Do this, do that. Here, this might help you there. You're doing great content.
Right.
The interview was great." They cared zero about it, and it literally was just, you know, they could have put a little marker and scribbled in the name. It's pretty much identical, same format, same name,
and that's
everything.
who these people are. If you're on social media and you want to know more about that, look at Whistle Realty and Brian Cosey. Brian Cosey is his you.
Yeah.
Is Kyle Whistle's you.
Yeah. Right.
So it's producer and photographer, things like that. And they do great content, and then they put things out there in the world. Like even today, I saw, I'm sure by the time people hear this, it'll be way over. However, Brian was inviting people to a vlogger meeting. You know, and I've sat in one with them before too, as we sit in there, and it's a vlogger mastermind, right? And so we talk about video blogging. And so, you know, all the topics came up, and what are you seeing in the business? How are you doing this? And he picks everybody's brain just like we pick his. You know, it's like the cool thing about them is they're doing exactly what we talked about. They're failing forward. They've done so much stuff, so much content that's failed, right? So they've tried the intros, on the front of the video. You
Yeah.
know, they've tried the intros or the outros, and they've moved it over here to explain who they are, where they are, whatever else. And typically when people hear real estate, they tune out, right? So they've kind of kept it without real estate, other than the intro of saying, as top producing realtors in the area, we're always in the best restaurants, blah, blah, blah. And they go through their whole intro. That's the only thing they talk about real estate and those things. And they've failed at that. They've put out a bunch of content. And so their failures have helped me out is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Brian even said, he's like, oh man, I'm getting a ton of questions about this. Instead of just trying to answer everybody, I'm going to do a whole video. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And he killed it. I mean, just showed like step by step the entire process. So
Marshall just slid me a card that said, "I'ma kill you," and then on the bottom it says, "Because I said I would."
I was just tidying the table up.
that's commitment right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely,
But I know that
prior planning
Paul
and execution.
Campanaro, that's been on the show before, he has these cards that say, "Because I said I would," so he wants you to write a goal on there or whatever it
nice.
is. So I guess someone put, "I'ma kill you," and slid it under the door because I said I would.
That's awesome.
Funny stuff. All right, man. Well, what do you guys think? We cover that, a little bit about failing. Do you have any other cool stories or just actionable items is what I like. Every time we walk in here, I want to give something back to the people that are 2 years new in the business, that are restarting in the business, that might be struggling with their business. I'm trying to give something to them. I think we should put
Just go
something
out and do
on to Top Shelf Agents out there about video and really how to start in video. So we have a couple of those videos just kind of sitting there that we've done this in the past and haven't shared them out. Once again, more than likely we shoot content. We don't release it until it's right. Maybe it's time to go ahead and pop one of those on there.
Yeah, we'll throw some of that. There's some other content from that we need to push out there. So this week and next week will definitely be a bigger push for some of the content we've had and kind of in the bucket.
Right.
To get that out.
Actually, Marshall Tucker did one. The Viday Day video or whatever you did. You do the Viday Day or whatever you said. Video. Try to put a little chic spin on it.
Yeah.
But I'd repost that one. Actually, that's one that you can actually pin to the top. I think you're an admin in that group, so you can definitely pin it to the top so folks can see it out there. But there's no buts, right? However, it's that shot with a green screen, correct? Mm-hmm. That's a shot with a green screen. Green screens are super cheap. You can buy them off Amazon in a little kit with lighting and everything else, and you don't even need to go that far yet.
You can stand in front of a little cheap poster of your city or of your area.
Yeah.
They're like a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
At like thrift stores or somewhere else. You just get a little poster, stick it to your wall, and then stand in front of that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Low
any
budget
color
stuff.
works too. It doesn't have to be just green. If you have like a blue or some off color that you're not going to be wearing, that'll work as well.
Right.
The scenery, I mean, if you're not going to do it out and about, I mean, you just get a poster of the city. Or some kind of nice skyline or
Stand in front of
something.
a nice brick wall. We used to do that too.
Stand in front of a Lamborghini.
Stand in front of anything.
Not in front of my Lamborghini.
Don't stand in front of a Lamborghini.
Do one of those like these influencers you see that
don't-
James,
that 'cause he
James
doesn't
listens
have
to
one.
every morning.
Don't try and pretend to be this multi-million-dollar real estate agent if you haven't even done one transaction. Just be you.
Just
100%
be you. That was my point of that, and I'm glad you just knocked that one out of the park. Be you. That's all. That's all you got to be is you. Nobody cares about all that other stuff. Just talk about things you know about.
We got a
Don't
guy-
incorporate real estate into it. All you're trying to do is gain top of mind awareness and get people to think about you.
Just talking to an agent this morning. He went on a $2 million listing appointment for a guy. He's never sold anything above $350. And he's like, I will hustle. He's like, I'll out hustle anybody in this city to work for you.
I call BS.
I mean, you can sell it. Anyone? It was.
I'm just saying he went out hustle me. That's all I say.
For a newer agent, he's been in less than 2 years.
Right.
That's awesome. I mean, most people are going to shy away from that unless you have the experience. And then how often are those agents who are taking those listings normally really, really hustling more than he would?
Yeah.
Probably not a lot of them.
I saw a realtor buddy of ours. He's actually really big in the KW system as far as that stuff goes. But he posted a picture of, I guess somebody driving a sports car. It's kind of uncharacteristic for him because he's very down to earth. But it was a picture of, someone's hand on a gear shifter that had a Rolex on. And it was, the hustle is free or the dream sold separately. What's that quote? Of course I butchered it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what it is, so I took a picture of my watch, like on my truck, and I was just kind of like, the harder I hustle, the more my dreams turn to reality. You know, so
I think dreams are free. The hustle is
yeah.
cost you something like that. I don't know.
Sold separately.
Yeah, the hustle's free, the dream sold separately, or something like that. But
We'll figure it out.
We'll post it in Top Shelf Agents when we figure it out.
I don't go off quotes very much. I see those on Instagram all the time, and I've kind of distanced myself a tad bit from Instagram, not too much, but just anything that's quote wise is kind of almost at my roll eyes now, because everybody posts just the major motivational quotes, and to me, motivation is what temporary. You know, how do you stay motivated all the time? It's just
I found some good ones.
doing and executing.
I was on a roll for a while. I kind of slacked off a little bit, which kind of proves your point. But the with motivation quotes, and there's some pretty solid ones that I really enjoyed.
There you go. Marshall looked it up. We actually have our phones in
See,
here.
right? I was
The
right.
dream is free.
The
The
dream is free.
hustle is sold separately.
Yeah. See?
Nice. There you go. Write it on your wall.
Yep.
Take a picture of it. Put it up on your vision board. Do something with it.
My
But
favorite one is still from Fanatical Prospecting. The more I prospect, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
I just told another agent that the other day, and then started cracking up.
yep,
Like, it's pretty accurate.
that's fantastic. All right, at this point we're just rambling, so let's go ahead and get out of the studio today. Happy Friday. I know I'm not supposed to mark the episodes with.
It's all right. We'll throw it out there today. It's a 3-day weekend. Actually, a friend of mine asked me, she's like, so are you going to have a 3-day weekend? I was like, what? What's that?
I already got appointments scheduled for Monday.
There you go.
I was like,
3-day weekend here.
You do remember what I do.
Right.
There is no such thing as a 3-day weekend.
We're always on. We're always on. All right. Mike Harrell. Let's talk about Mike Harrell real quick. Guaranteed rate. Saw him the other day. Hell of a guy. Has something going on in his life right now we won't mention. However, he is a hell of a guy, and he is staying on top of all of our loans as always. He seems to be able to do things that most lenders can't do. Been at it for a while. Maserati Mike. But anyway,
Marshall's
guaranteed
waiting for
rate.
it.
If you need to get a hold of Mike, get at us at info@realestateontherocks.com. We'll get you in touch with him. If you have any questions, tips, tricks, or show ideas, or if you want to be a guest of the show, please send us an email over at info@realestateontherocks.com. For Real Estate on the Rocks, I'm Dave Snowberger, Marshall Tucker,
I'm out.
and the new guy behind the glass, James Mendez.
Gone.
Peace.